Greetings, traveler. Let's say you want to develop a big, ambitious, beautiful game, but you have no budget, no team members to help you with, no grand studio to back you up. It's basically just you or maybe one other person. Is it still possible to make a game like that? I think so. So let's talk about this today. If you don't know who I am, my name is Xanthos, and I've been working in the games industry for the past decade or so. And this podcast is my way of sharing everything I know. If you're someone who's walking the path of making video games, this video is for you. So let's start with defining exactly what developing a game is and how we can look at it in this context. So you might be thinking something like a big AAA game like God of War or Call of Duty, something like that. And it can be quite daunting to think about how you could create something as grand and with as amazing quality, especially with nothing to start with, no team members, no budget, and so on. So it's still possible if you follow these steps. We're going to talk about the process of starting with absolutely zero budget, and then we're going to talk about how to achieve each step, and when you have actually a game in your hands that you can show to people and you can play with, what you can do then to continue your way forward and even start earning money for the creation you have made. So let's dive in. First, let's talk about why to develop a game for no budget. This can mean having no initial capital to start with. This can mean that you avoid seeking outside investment from an investor or from a publisher. This may also mean that you're doing it all on your own as an indie developer, not in a big company, not already part of a huge team with lots of budgets, high-end computers readily available to work with, software licenses paid, and so on. So this is the context we are discussing with. So how do you start in this environment? Well, let's start. You will most likely need a game engine to work inside, and you will most likely need the game document that describes what sort of game you're trying to make. The game document you can make in any sort of free tool, any text editor, a notebook, anything works. For the game engine, without to get into specifics, there's several free game engines if you Google the term, and even the big game engines, big commercial ones like Unity or Unreal, will let you get started for no money upfront. So this is an excellent opportunity to dive into your favorite way of development, play around with it and see what suits you. And this brings us to the next point. How do you get started making something in a game engine? Aren't you going to need skills? Like, don't you need to be a programmer or an artist or something to make a game? How can you start without having those? Well, in this day and age, there's so many tutorials and free materials that come with any given game engine as part of easy startup process that even if you know none of these fields intimately, you can get started using their sample scenes or sample projects or example games, demos they might have available, and so on. Now, every engine focuses on slightly different things, so you might have to look around to see what's most appropriate for your game. And if the later cost of the big game engines scares you, you don't have to worry about it in the beginning, because even Unity and Unreal will only start requesting part of your profits if you exceed, I think, $1 million or so. So it's something to think about in the future, but you don't have to worry about it too much when you're just starting out. So another concern here is, well, I'm not a programmer. How can I just jump in and start programming? Thankfully, here the game engines have you covered as well, because there is plenty of examples out there and plenty of tutorials to show you exactly what to do. So you won't have to write most things from scratch. There's going to be lots of examples available. And my recommendation at this stage is not to try to create anything from scratch, but start from a sample project that's recommended by the engine's creators and start playing around with it. So, for example, if you start out with a racing game sample project, it's going to be very simple, but it will still let you adjust some parameters like speed, turning angles, the size of the vehicles, and so on. Those are very, very easy adjustments you can make that immediately impact gameplay. So you can start playing around and see what you like, what you find fun, and how you can customize what you've started with to go towards the direction your game is going. So let's say you have done this step. Let's say you have found an engine that you like and you found a sample project and tutorials to go together with it, and you want to start actually making your game rather than playing around with some of the values. In this step, you will likely start creating what we call a gray box prototype. It's called a gray box prototype because it's a game at this stage that has no graphics in the traditional sense, no beautiful cinematic 3D high detail assets and characters. Instead, it's just gray boxes. So if we go with the racing game example from before, let's say you want to create a brand new race car, but you don't want to use the graphics provided by the sample project. You want to create something entirely new, then you would likely create just a gray box and place it in the scene and use the scripts that the game provided already, the example project provided already, to drive that box. And it's not going to look like the other cars, but it's going to behave in a different way, the way that you set. And it's going to be the start of you customizing the asset to behave as you like. That's really the start of your own game development. It might seem daunting at the beginning, but try to focus on modifying as little as possible of the code and of the game project that you received to start with as a sample. And quickly you'll be able to modify it to create just about everything you need. Of course, ChatGPT and all this AI support that we have nowadays is a huge help in this process. So try to use it as much as possible. Copilot is also out there. So those are things that will support you even if you can't immediately find the tutorial that's appropriate for this. So let's move to the next step and talk about how you proceed after you have started modifying the sample project you started with and what's your first goal. Well, at this point, you likely don't want to create a 500-hour massive sprawling RPG for your first project. My recommendation here is to simply develop one level of the game or just a single goal for the player to achieve, or playing the game until you defeat the first boss, something like that. You get the idea. So take the huge scope of a big AAA game and reduce it down to the first, let's say, 10 minutes or so of the player's experience. So by doing that, you have all the elements you would typically have in a full-fledged game, but the scope is small enough to let you focus on it and without having to worry about the far off in the future details. You can create something that you yourself can play to a certain point and that you can share with other people. And this is the key here. Once you have created the game up to that first goal and you're satisfied with it, then you can share it with a friend and get your friend's input in the game. This is incredibly valuable, and it's something most people don't do when they're starting out with games. We have this idea in our mind that our games need to be flawless and Hollywood visuals level, and they must play for 1,000 hours seamlessly, otherwise they're just not good enough. That mindset is difficult to use in the beginning, since it will prevent you from testing your game out, and it will also delay ironing out any kinks the game has, any bugs and so on, until you think that the game is ready or perfect or in a state to show it to other people. My recommendation here is to little by little, don't worry about that so much, and don't introduce the game as a amazing project that you created. Instead, try to have fun with your friends. Say, hey, I created something yesterday. Let's play it and see what you think. And get more and more feedback on the game that you have created. That is, in my opinion, the single most valuable action you can do to improve your game, other than, of course, keep working on it for a prolonged period of time. That feedback is going to give you everything you need to make your game into slowly a fully fledged commercial type of gaming software out there. So after you're done with this step, you keep showing it to people and explaining to them what the world is and what the game is supposed to be, so that they understand the meaning of the gray boxes you have placed in the game. When you have a good enough state of the game to work with, you will likely want to dress it up a little bit with better graphics, and maybe even consider selling it to people. So how would you go about doing that? Talking about assets for a moment, there is a lot of asset stores available. There's a Unity asset store, Unreal, there's free marketplaces online, where you could, for very little money or no money at all, get assets from there and use them in your game. Again, how would you download a character model and place it in your game is a question that might come up. How do you, let's say, download the model of a tree available somewhere and put that tree in your game scene? These are all excellent questions, and this is something, again, tutorials and AI help can be a hugely important resource in. So don't worry about how it's going to turn out in the end. Go for it, see what happens, try downloading it, try putting it in your game, and have a constant conversation either with an online community that's helping you out in game development, or with the AI software, or perhaps with people you know who are game developers themselves, or just simply experimenting and see what sort of results you get with different ways of implementing assets into your game scene. So little by little, your scene is going to look better. The graphics are going to look more and more like what you would expect in a video game. And believe it or not, before you know it, you're going to end up with a game, an actual, real, playable, enjoyable game that you can show to more and more of your friends, even friends that couldn't exactly understand what the point of a gray box prototype is, and they couldn't imagine what all these boxes supposed to mean. If you have the graphics in place, then it's easier for people to understand the theme of the game and the goal. So when you get to that point, you might want to start giving your game out to people to try it. And then you will see that people will start making requests for the game. And those requests are going to be usually in the shape of, could you add this feature to the game? Could you add another character to the game? Could you add another level? All these requests are gold for you, because it means that your game is enjoyable enough that people actually want more of it, and they're even telling you exactly what they want in the game. So at this point, you can slowly start having conversations like, well, yeah, I could add this to the game, but would you mind paying me $1 or €1 for this? Or, hey, I added all these features you wanted. Would you like to buy the game for $3, $5? Here, a good way to scale up this process is to give some copies of the game away for free. And then once people start asking for specific features and they tell you that they enjoy your game, then you can start doing the next 5 copies for, let's say, $1. If people keep enjoying that and they keep asking you for features, give the next 5, sell them rather for $2, the next 5 for $3, the next 5 for $5, and so on, up to the price that you think is appropriate. So you can see how this little by little scales into something that is very clear to move forward in, because you know what exactly people enjoy seeing in the game and what you enjoy seeing in the game and how you would like to expand it. And B, and more importantly perhaps, this begins being an income stream for you. It might not be big enough in the beginning to quit your job and just stop what you're doing and focus all your attempts into this, but trust me, much sooner than later, as long as you keep working on the game with the same excitement and the same passion, and you keep listening to the players' feedback and slowly incorporating it into the game, you will end up with something so wonderful. People simply want to enjoy it, and they will be happy to pay you to keep working on it and sharing the fun with them. So eventually you might consider putting it on a marketplace or putting it on Steam or whatever, or putting it on your own website. There's many ways to move forward. So if you're interested in that, please let me know in the comments below, and I'll cover how to tackle the next exciting issue instead of where to put your game and how to introduce it to the grand public. So if this is you right now, if you're wondering how to start with your first game for no budget and with no other team members to help you, then to bring it back all together, you can start with one of the established game engines that's out there. Most of them are available for free to start with. There's plenty of tutorials and AI help to help you get started and to help you navigate the first bugs that are going to come out. For finding the scope of that initial game, then focusing on the first goal that you want the player to achieve, or the first boss to beat, or the first level to play through, is a good way to start. You don't have to worry much about what happens after that, or making a huge game after that at that point. You can just start. And for the graphics, you can find free assets in asset stores, or if you want something slightly better, you can consider spending a little bit of money for getting better looking assets. And that should take you out of the gray box stage and into the normal game looking like game prototype. And once you're there and you share it with people and they start enjoying it and asking for features, then you can do it for free in the beginning, and then little by little start implementing these features in the game for a very little amount of money, and watch it scale beautifully and turn out into something you enjoy making and people enjoy playing. So that's it for today. I hope this is interesting and enjoyable advice to you. And as always, have fun.